50,000 women marched down Fifth Avenue to demand equality with men, under the law, at home, in the workplace.
I wanted to go and be a bus driver. I think I should have the right to apply, and if I can drive a bus, be able to drive it.
For me, women's liberation means being able to go out, look for an apartment, and not have the door slammed in my face because I'm not married.
Well, I think they definitely should have, with regard to pay, equal pay commensurate with equal abilities. But I believe the man should have some little authority more than a woman.
I'll never forget when I turned the corner at the Hotel Plaza. I could not see to the end. It was the most exciting day. It was the time that the women's movement became a movement.
Since the beginning of the century, women have been fighting against attitudes that hold them back. Yet around the world, half the people still can't enjoy all the freedoms the other half takes for granted.
Bring the dear old banner, boys, and fling it to the wind. Mother, wife, and daughter, let it shelter and defend. Equal rights, our motto is we're loyal to the end. Giving the ballot to the mothers. Hurrah, hurrah, we bring the Jubilee. Hurrah!
Women's suffrage is a long story of hard work and heartache, crowned by victory.
Giving the ballot to the mothers.
20 years into the century, after decades of struggle, women won the right to vote in much of Europe and the United States. But in the home, most women were still confined to their traditional roles of wives and mothers. And the millions who needed to go out to work in mills and factories were seen as a source of cheap labor and paid less than men. In much of the rest of the world, women were completely subservient. They worked long hours in the fields and were often given the heaviest physical labor and the most repetitive tasks. Their place was defined by tradition and custom as secondary to men. In the United States, the status of women had advanced little since winning the vote in 1920. But suddenly, in 1942, all that changed.
We must win this war, but we can't win this war unless you women take over the jobs that men are leaving. English women have done it for 3 years. American women are now doing it all over the country.
18 million women were thrust into roles traditionally reserved for men, and their view of what they were capable of changed dramatically.
General Sherman tanks, big land battleships, put through their paces by the girls.
How do you like it?
But despite their competence in a wide variety of jobs, women were constantly reminded of the temporary nature of it all.
And Lee Dunning, who now welds on landing barges. And what about after this war, Lee?
Well, this job belongs to some soldier. When he comes back, he can have it.
Oh, that's swell.
Back to their homes and families in countless American communities today are coming more and more discharged veterans of the Second World War.
When the men returned, so did the traditional view that a woman's role was to be married and at home.
Throughout the length and breadth of America, in every city and town, every day in the week, is somebody's wedding day.
I pronounce that they are husband and wife.
In the years that followed, a woman's subordinate role was rarely questioned. Jenny Whitehill was a typical post-war bride.
Well, I did what most girls did when they came out of college and married a war hero. That's what we were supposed to do, and had children. And every woman was expected to have children. No woman would have ever dared not consider having children.
In the television shows and movies of the 1950s, women were portrayed as fulfilled in their stay-at-home role of perfect wife and mother. It was a life many, like Colleen Parrot, aspired to.
As I was growing up, I dreamed about Prince Charming, and I did meet him. And I wanted to have a home and a family and a normal, average, ordinary life with children. And I really didn't have tremendous expectations.
Television commercials were even more blatant. No shortage of housework to do, but never done quite right.
On the first morning of our honeymoon, I discovered my beautiful bride didn't know the first thing about coffee. And I love good coffee. Wife, I said, this is Maxwell House. So remember, be a good little Maxwell housewife, and this honeymoon could last forever.
Boss, what's the matter? Solid vinaigrette.
Oh, well, oil and vinegar don't mix. Well, they really don't.
Outside the home, women were portrayed as lacking common sense and common skills.
Open the door.
Sorry, honey. My watch stopped.
That's because you forgot to wind it again, Alice.
Honey, I had an accident. What do I do?
Even when women's enthusiasm and stamina were acknowledged, the tone was often patronizing.
What is that whipcord resilience that lets the weaker sex play half the night, then bob up clear-eyed, ready for the next morning's work?
By 1950, a third of all American women worked outside the home. But most were relegated to low-paying, menial jobs with virtually no chance to advance.